Good evening. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're logged on from. My name is Chinelo Kongwe, and I am the Regional Manager, West Africa for the University of Portsmouth. Usually, for every intake that we have within the university, we do a pre-departure briefing, which is essentially to provide you with vital information that will be relevant on your journey to the University of Portsmouth. And so this is one of those kinds of webinars. And I'm joined this hot afternoon, because I'm on this from West Africa, Nigeria, by my line manager, Ruth Walton. So I'd allow Ruth to do her introduction, and then we can begin. Thank you again for taking our time to be a part of this. So just before Ruth gets on, it's important that we lay down some house rules. Okay, and the first one will be that this will run through like a PowerPoint slide presentation. There will be opportunities for Q&A at the end of the PowerPoint session. And so if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and we will definitely have a look at them at the end of the presentation. Quite a number of times, some of these questions that you have will be covered during the course of this presentation, but should you have any further questions, or is there anything that you're unclear about, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we would have a look at them at the end of the presentation. And so without further ado, I will let Ruth do her introduction, and then we can begin. Thank you again for logging on. Over to you, Ruth.
Thank you, Chinelo. Hi, everybody. Thank you for waiting whilst we let a few people in to join us, any sort of latecomers. So a warm welcome to you all. And as Chinelo says, thank you for giving up your afternoon and part of your evening today to hear from us and get you excited about joining us here in Portsmouth in just a few weeks' time. Frightening, isn't it? But my name is Ruth Walton. I am the Senior Global Officer for Recruitment for Africa. I also look after the Americas and Central Asia as well, but I'm UK based. So I'm quite cold today. Janelo's in her University of Portsmouth and Portsmouth Football Club shirt because it's nice and warm in Nigeria. But it's a bright day today here in Portsmouth, but it is a little chilly because it's December. So I've got my jacket on to keep me a little warmer. But a warm welcome to you all. So let's make a start. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction, first of all, to the university and where we are, who we are, and key things that you might already know, because I'm sure you've done your research on the university, but some things you might have forgotten or might just not be aware of. So first of all, let's take a look at the photo, the backdrop. That's a pretty great picture, and that really shows the location of Portsmouth, we are a seafront university, but this is the city of Portsmouth. You will be studying in the city of Portsmouth. So our campus is city centre based. It's not outside of the city, like some universities are. Their campus can sometimes be away from the city centre. But I think this is a really great thing. Portsmouth is a great medium-sized city. So not as big as London, Birmingham, Manchester, for example, but it's not a small town either. So you will get to know your way around the city, and you're living in a British community, in the Portsmouth community, and of course the international student community as well. But being a city centre campus, you are still close to the south coast. You are also close to green park space, which is what you can see on the screen just here. Our location of Portsmouth, though, is approximately 70 miles, 110 kilometres from London. Now, all UK universities will tell you how far away we are from London, but that's because it's the capital city of England, and of course it's probable and more than likely where you're going to be flying into. So when you land into London Heathrow or London Gatwick, 70 miles on public transport, whether that's a train or a coach bus service, could be anything from 90 minutes on a train, or 3 to 4 hours, maybe, depending on the route on the National Express coach, the bus service. But the location of us, even though we are South Coast, we still have great transport links to the rest of the UK and further afield in Europe as well. And like I mentioned, we're a seafront location. You are walking distance from the city. Where you're going to be living is very close to where you're going to be studying, but then you're a 15, 20-minute walk from the coast. And what I always say to international students, some people are like, oh, but it's Britain, it's Great Britain. It's a bit cold, it's a bit wet. Yes, we do have days like that, but there's no such thing as bad weather. There's such a thing as bad clothing. So get yourself a good jacket and enjoy the flat seafront. So it's great for walking or cycling, or if any of you enjoy keeping fit and active, great for outdoor sports as well. Lots of students buy cheap second-hand bikes to cycle around the city. It's a fairly safe city to cycle around. Get some good lights and a high-vis jacket so you can be seen safely, and wear a helmet, of course. But yes, it's got that great seaside, seafront location city. So this is a slide that Chinelo and I are very, very proud of. You know, we're showing off here because we have done well and we continue to succeed. We're a young university. We're not historically really, really old university, but we are very, very well established and we are thriving. Our most recent achievement is the TEF Gold. Now, the TEF on the left-hand side there stands for Teaching Excellent Framework. And for the second time running, this lasts for 3 years. And for the second time running now, we've just won gold. So our standard of teaching is gold standard. So you're going to be in good hands when you come to us in January. And you can see the other fantastic achievements of the university on this screen. One in particular I'd like to draw your attention to is the top right, where it says here that we're the top 35, according to the Sunday Times Good University Guide for 2023, we're in the top 35 for student satisfaction, which again is pretty great. So our teaching standard is great. Students are happy. Students are satisfied. This is a survey current students complete to say, give us feedback, to say how happy they are in the city and how happy they are at the university as well. Some other key things for you to consider here are key dates for your calendar. So these are things coming up in the new year, when you are coming to the UK and when you can, before you start your studies. So hopefully you'll be arriving in time. Hopefully you've got your student visa already, or if not, hopefully it'll be in time so you can enjoy and appreciate all of these. So the first things to consider are the airport pickup services. This is only going from London Heathrow on Saturday the 13th and Sunday the 14th of January. So we'll show you a link later on in this presentation, but that's basically a chance. There are 2 time slots or 1 time slot during the day from London Heathrow Airport only. And you pay, I think it's about £25 for your place on the coach. So on the bus, on the university bus that we hire to come and collect you. So you might see me with a sign, or our student ambassadors or my colleagues with a sign, and we'll all be wearing University of Portsmouth branded sweatshirts and t-shirts so you can spot us easily, and we'll get everyone together, walk you to the bus, and we'll take you literally to your student accommodation. So this is the easiest way to make it super easy for you, especially if you come off a long flight. It's really nice to have somebody there welcoming you to the UK and taking you literally door-to-door service. You can obviously fly into London Gatwick as well, but we won't be there to greet you. This airport service is only from Heathrow. But London Gatwick is very accessible. You can book in advance or on a day, but in advance is cheaper. You can book a train ticket through the train line, so train line website, and I can share details of that at the end. You can book your ticket from London Gatwick straight to Portsmouth and Southsea, or Portsmouth Harbour, one of the Portsmouth stops anyway. And from there, you could get a taxi outside of the train station that will take you. You can say you need to go to this student accommodation. But it's a lot easier for you and hassle-free for you to come to Heathrow and book yourself in advance before you land, book your place on the coach for the airport pickup service. From the 13th of January, so from that Saturday the 13th, that's when you can move into your student accommodation. So you can't move in earlier. Even if you do arrive to the UK before the 13th of January, you will have to find your own accommodation because you won't be able to move into the halls of residence. You won't be able to move into the accommodation just yet. I can see a question come through already, which is great. Thank you for that. We will come to that at the end. So by all means, like this student has done already, please do submit your questions into the Q&A and we'll address those at the end. But sometimes when we're going through these slides, you might think of something. So by all means, type that in. That's no problem. We also then have, from the 15th of January, the International Orientation Programme. And this is a really great way to welcome you into the city. And again, I'll go into that in a bit more detail a bit later on in this presentation. So the orientation programme runs from the 15th until the 22nd of January. Induction week and the first week of term. So when you had to go and register and get yourself onto the course, and when teaching will start is from the 22nd of January. So that's when you'll be given your timetable and all these bits and pieces. Well, you'll be given that when you register, actually. So on the 15th of January is when you register, but then induction week and the first week of term starts from the 22nd of January. So that's when things get serious and get real, and hopefully you would have had a few days, maybe a week or so, to settle into the city and acclimatise to a little bit to the culture and the time difference and exhaustion from flights. Maybe you'll have time to adjust and then ready to start term on the 22nd of January. Wasn't clicking through, apologies. Okay, so Chinello, over to you, talking about application and visa.
Yes, thank you, Rose. So can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So I'm just going to run through your application process. Once you have been made an offer, the first thing to do really is to accept your offer via your applicant view. I know some students, because of the excitement of having their offer, just want to go ahead and fulfill the conditions on their offer, and that's a wonderful thing. But it's important that you accept your offer, because that triggers the next step in your application process. And the next steps would include information from the accommodations team, information sent through by the student visa team or the international student advisor team. These are, excuse me, automated responses that you'll be getting once you accept your offer.
I think we might have lost Chinello. Maybe it's a connection issue. So I'll take over and carry on. I forget where she was. I think maybe she got to number 3. So uploads, once you have accepted your offer through applicant view, you will get your username and your student identification number. So you can log into applicant view. That's our internal system that you can access to track the progress of your application. Upload, as number 2 says, any required documents that we're asking you for, maybe copies of certificates, transcripts, etc., etc. Number 3 is when you upload the required documents in CAS Shield. Chinello, I can see you're back. Do you want to carry on from point 4?
Yes, I do. Apologies, something went wrong. Okay, so then you upload the required documents in your CAS Shield. Now, when you have been made an offer, there will be conditions on your offer letter. Some of them will be academic conditions. So maybe it's to upload your transcripts, your degree certificates, or your WAEC, NECO, English language evidence. All of this you should then upload on your portal. And then you go ahead and upload these via your CAS Shield.
Chinello, you're on mute still. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you just rewind?
You'll then be required to pay your tuition deposit or provide your sponsorship letter, and then proceed to apply for your student route visa. Next slide, please. Now, this is vital information because I get a lot of students who wait until the very last minute to make a decision on their accommodation. You have until the 15th of December, which is in a few days, to not just accept your offer, but also signify by contacting the accommodations team if you are interested in accommodation within the university. it's important that you complete this application as soon as possible because it gives you the chance to get the type of hall you want. There are quite a number of halls of residency scattered across the campus, and some of them are closer to one faculty from another. So it gives you the opportunity, if you contact the accommodations team early, to make a decision on your accommodation, and then gives you the liberty to make a choice. Please note that if you have not secured a long-term accommodation prior to your arrival, you are expected to book a hotel. The university does not have temporary or emergency accommodation for students. So like Ruth said, there are specific dates as to when the accommodation will be open. So if you're arriving before those dates, you should do well to book your own place because we don't have any temporary or emergency accommodation. And then for students who do not contact the accommodation team at all, we will then assume that you already have a pre-arranged accommodation because there won't be any last-minute accommodation arrangements made available to you. Now, it's important that we're aware of the new rule that does not allow us come with dependents, except you're on a PhD program. If that's the case and you intend to bring your dependents, please be aware that the university accommodation is not open to family. Sorry, I've got a cough. It just comes and goes. Apologies. So you should make your own arrangement for your family accommodation. In saying that, the university accommodation is also happy to provide you with the information you need in providing this private sector rental market information. So I get students, for example, saying, oh, I didn't contact the accommodation team because I had plans to come with my family and I didn't think that they will be of help since the university accommodation is essentially for students. Now, whilst that accommodation within the university is for students, the accommodation team will be happy to provide you with all the information that you would need in getting a place external from the university's accommodation. So just beneath this is their email address. Please feel free to pop them an email and they will provide you with all that information that you require. Next slide, please, Ruth. Okay, so once you get your CAS, and you get your CAS after you have accepted your offer, met all the pending conditions, paid your deposit, it is your responsibility to check that all the information on your CAS is correct. Your name, your cost duration, your passport number. If you have got any discounts, because I do know that there are several discounts available for international students, ensure that this discount is reflected on your CAS statement. Whatever payment you have made towards your tuition fees, please ensure that this is captured on your CAS statement. Should there be any type of error, you are expected to send an email to CAS corrections team at port.ac.uk and they'll be happy to effect the change on your CAS. I also get students, for example, say, I've got my CAS, but I went ahead and paid additional fees. And I would like that to reflect, excuse me. And I would like that to reflect on my CAS statement. Now, the right thing to do is also contact the CAS corrections team. So this does not just apply to where there are mistakes on your CAS statement, but if you needed to include an additional information, for example, paid additional fees, the CAS corrections team will be happy to correct your CAS statement to reflect exactly how much you have paid. Now you should have your bank statements ready, and a mature bank statement is one that has been there for 28 consecutive days of the correct amount. And so the best way to calculate that really is how much you've paid in terms of your tuition fees and your living expenses. You should ensure that you calculate that adequately. I know it's been a bit of a challenge trying to get an up-to-date bank statement because of the fluctuation of the naira to the pound or the cedi to the pound or whatever currency we're talking about. The best website to check this will be the Rwanda. And the advice I would give in a circumstance where there is fluctuation in the currency exchange is perhaps consider having your funds in foreign currency. I know that might seem a bit of a difficulty, but it makes things easier in terms of not being concerned if there is a fluctuation in the exchange rate. However, if this is something that you're not able to do for whatever reason, please ensure that the funds you have in place for the stipulated amount of days is the correct sum. I'm happy to have a look at your bank statement or provide you with information regarding that. I'm also happy to link you up with the Investis trusted agent that can have a look and provide you with all the information and the calculation of your funds to ensure that we don't get any unpleasant surprises by visa refusal. But it's important that your proof of finance is up to date and for the specified amount and for the specified number of days. Now, your supporting documents when you are applying for your visa, which will typically include your bank statement, must be original and should be in English if it's not in English prior to when you obtained it from your bank. So this extends to applicants on this call who might be from the Francophone side of West Africa. Now, on your offer letter, if you have a requirement to provide an ATA certificate, please ensure that you submit the application for the ATA certificate sooner rather than later. This ATA certificate requirement does not extend to all the courses within the university. So you could have a colleague or a friend who's applied to study with us having a conditional offer that did not include the ATA certificate requirement. Usually the ATA certificate will be for some of our science and engineering courses, not all of them. But if your course requires an ATA certificate, it would have been stated explicitly on your offer. So it's important that you check your offer to ensure that you are aware as to whether your course requires you to have an ATA certificate or not. The process of obtaining an ATA certificate cannot be rushed. And so it's important that you start off the process of applying for this certificate as soon as you get your offer and you determine whether you need it or not. It could take as much as 25 to 30 working days to get your ATA certificate when you have submitted an application. And it is not a certificate that is generated by the University of Portsmouth. It's a separate body that issues the certificate. So it's important that you get that sorted and out of the way as soon as possible. Now, in submitting your application, you should be aware that you need to pay your your immigration health surcharge fee as part of your visa application. It is the process for submitting your visa. So whilst you're paying your visa fee, you're also paying the IHS fee, and it's simply calculated to the tune of the duration of your course of study. So you should be adequately prepared to make that payment as part of your visa application. There was something else I missed out with the ATA certificate. If you apply for this certificate and you were not able to get it on time and therefore missed the intake for that particular session, it is quite certain that you might not be able to use that ATA certificate for the next intake if it is 6 months after the course. So it's easier, for example, for students who've applied for September to use their ATA certificate for January if it is still within the 6-month period. But if it extends the 6-month period, then the ATA certificate is seen to be expired and you will need to apply again. And that's why it is important that you get that sorted as quickly as possible. In some regions and in some countries, we do a credibility interview, and all of that will have been made clear to you before progressing with your CAS statement. So it is not all the countries in West Africa that require a credibility interview. Some countries, we specifically require you to do a credibility interview, and we would have communicated that to you. In some other circumstance, at the discretion of the admissions team, you might be required to do a credibility interview. It's important that you take this credibility interview seriously because it forms the decision as to whether you progress with your offer or not, irrespective of whether you have paid your tuition fees or provided all the pending documents. If you do not pass the credibility interview, your application will go no further. Now, if you have a visa refusal, the last thing you should be wanting to do is to reapply again with the same CAS number, because that CAS number, CAS statement, will be cancelled and you will need to request a new CAS statement before making a new visa application. So when you applied for your visa and for whatever reason you had a visa refusal, please contact myself or the student visa team. We will need to determine the reason for the visa refusal, be able to advise whether we can provide you with a new CAS statement in time for you to apply for the intake you're interested in, or advise you on what you need to do going forward. Next slide, please, Rose. Right, so this talks about your bank statement. I get asked a lot, especially in the case of PhD students or students who are offering courses that are longer than 1 year, undergraduate students, and some of our master's degree courses that span longer than 1 year, how much bank statement sum they should have, how much money they should have in their bank statement. So all we need to show in our bank statement, irrespective of the duration of the course of study, is 1 year's worth of tuition fees. And this is taking into cognizance the fact that you would have paid some fees in terms of your tuition fees. So I'll just break this down. Assuming your tuition fee is about £15,000 and you have gone ahead to pay 50% of that sum. So that means you have paid 7,500, and this is reflecting on your CAS statement. You will just need to show the balance of what is left of your tuition fees, which in this case will be 7,500 plus your maintenance funds, which is 9,207 as calculated by the UKVI. So this maintenance funds is untouched. It cannot be reduced. It is what it is. And you should add that to what is left of your tuition fees to make a total of what would reflect in your bank statement. Whether it is in pounds or in your local currency, please ensure that you do the math in terms of calculating your currency against the pounds using your Rwanda rates to determine how much you should have specifically in your bank statement. Now, if your bank statement is in your parents' name, then you should also, at the time of submitting your application, have evidence to show that these are your parents. And that will mean like a birth certificate or a letter of consent from your sponsor, which will be your mom or your mother or your father. It's important that you know that the UKVI is not amenable to accepting bank statements that are not from yourself or from your parents. So if you've got an external source of funding, so that could be in the person of your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle, your grandpa, your grandma, the smart thing to do will be for the funds to be moved to your account or to your parents' account, because that's the standing rule for the acceptance of bank statements for student visa applications. These funds cannot be shown in bonds or shares or property. It should be in an account, either a savings or a current account. It just makes the whole process easy and seamless. Now, like I said, if the funds are from your parents, you should have your birth certificate, which includes both your name and your parents' name, and a letter from your parents to confirm their financial support. And like I said previously, you should have this account held for a minimum of 28 days, not 28 working days, 28 days. So that includes the weekends and the public holidays. And this bank statement should not be less than 1 month old, but it can be longer. So I've got some students, for example, who say, I've got a bank statement that is 2 months old. Do you think it's too mature? No, it's not too mature. It's just fine. It's 28 consecutive days or more for a successful bank statement for a visa application. And it's important that I state here that your bank statement should have the required sum as calculated based on my explanation for each single day within the 28-day period. At no point should there be a dip. And so that's why I usually will say over and over again that it's important you work with an expert when it comes to your visa application. And that's what my services as the staff of the university will entail. I'll be happy to put you through this, link you with a trusted agent to ensure that we don't get a visa refusals, because trust me, it's not always very simple when you have got a visa refusal and you're now trying to reapply again. Next slide, please, Ruth. Okay, so yeah, so this just reiterates what I've explained previously. Funds must be in your personal account or your parent account and must be instantly accessible. And that's why the funds, the bonds and the shares and the property will not be a good idea for the show of your bank information, bank statement. This is the website where you do your currency conversion as used by the UKVI. Now, I've got quite a number of students who are being sponsored or who say they're going to be sponsored by one organization or the other. We have certain institutions that we do have a memorandum of understanding with, and so we are able to accept their sponsorship letters. And those institutions provide us with the bank, with their students provide us with a sponsorship letter from those institutions, and the university honors those sponsorship letters. If you are to be funded by an organization that is not recognized by the United Kingdom, we would unfortunately not be able to work with your sponsorship letter. And so a typical example will be in Nigeria, for example, where we've got the PTDF, the NDDC, the TED Fund, and certain key organizations within the country like the central bank. These institutions, because we have a memorandum of understanding with them, we're happy to progress with your application as a student if you provide us with sponsorship letters from these institutions. In the case of the Ghana, we've got the GET Fund and the GSS. And so what I would advise is if you are to be sponsored by an organization and you're not certain as to whether that organization has a memorandum of understanding with the university, please feel free to contact me via email to determine if that is the case. Usually the best way to determine that is if it's not any of these institutions I have mentioned, and the organization does not have ties with the United Kingdom, then we might not be able to accept those sponsorship letters. What we would advise in this circumstance is that you speak to your sponsorship body to pay your tuition fees directly to the university and provide us with evidence of this payment, and we'll be happy to progress with your offer. And so it's important that you understand these financial sponsorship letters as is acceptable by the university and most importantly by the UKVI. Now, funds will not be considered if they are held in a financial institution where the UKVI are not able to verify these financial institutions. So it's important that you're working with big banks in your country. It will make it easier for the UKVI to access those banks and verify the authenticity of your bank statements. And it will just take care of unnecessary delays. So whilst talking to students when they reach out, I usually will reiterate that you work solely with the big banks in your region, because that way the UKVI know who to contact, know who to get in touch with to verify your bank statement, and your visa application process will not take longer than necessary. Where you're working with microfinance banks, small banks, banks not easy to be verified and contacted, that would impact on your visa application, and it could lead to either a refusal or unnecessary delays. Next slide, please, Rose. Right. So just tells you who to contact for further details or useful links, resources on the website that you might not be able to get through to easily. And so for further questions on your UKVI student route, feel free to send an email to the student visa team or to myself. I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction, give you all the adequate information, provide you with all the assistance that you require to make sure that your visa application is seamless. You can also email the student visa team or call them up. My details and that of Ruth will be somewhere at the end of the slide. Please feel free to also contact us either via email or WhatsApp, and we'll be happy to assist you as you progress in your journey to study with us. I think the next slide is yours, Ruth, correct?
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Chinelo. Okay, we'll give Chinelo a bit of breathing space, I think. That was a lot to cover, and she's coughing. Poor Chinelo, we need to look after her.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got a cough that is refusing to ship, but I'm fine. Please
No
go ahead.
problem. And it's always the way you're on presentation mode and the cough decides to wake up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you take a breathing space now, and I'll do these next few slides.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so preparing to travel to the UK, Chinelo's done a lot of the heavy stuff there, so thank you very much for covering all of that. This is being recorded though, of course, and the presentation is going to be shared with you. So a chance to listen back if or share with family to or with friends or who else needs to hear it. This next section though, these next few slides are about traveling to the UK and what to consider when arriving to the university as well. So preparing to travel, we've mentioned, Chinelo and I have both mentioned about arranging your accommodation. So that's the university accommodation, and you have by the 15th of December to guarantee that. So to book in that accommodation. But you can also always, that the accommodation team email was shared on the earlier slide, so you can reach out to them and contact them if you need to. If you're arriving before the 13th of January, though, like we both said already, you need to consider local hotels, maybe local bed and breakfast, Airbnb even, where you can rent accommodation for, well, as long as you need. So as soon as your student visa, that relief, as soon as you've received that student visa, you can then book your flight. We don't recommend booking them now. We know that if you haven't got your visa already, it's tempting to book flights earlier, as soon as possible, because they're cheaper. But if you don't, hopefully you will, fingers crossed. But if for some reason you don't get your student visa, you're still potentially going to get charged for that flight or charged to change the details of that flight. So hold back, book your flights once you've got your visa confirmed. And then when you know what flight you're getting, try and book those flights around that airport pickup service that I mentioned earlier. And again, I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail. So if you've got your student visa, try and book it into London Heathrow for the 13th or 14th, I think it was, of January, the Saturday or Sunday, and book it in around the times that we need you in for. So that's your airport pickup transport to Portsmouth. Think about what you're going to pack. Start making that list now. You know, put your passport at number 1 on that list. That's what I always do when I travel anywhere overseas. And I set reminders on my phone as well, just in case for some reason it jumps out of my handbag. So pack smart, check your luggage allowance. So whichever airline you decide to book with, check with the luggage allowance, how many kilograms you're allowed to travel with. And always keep your important documents like your passport and any paperwork, details of your hotel if you've booked one, you know, of where you need to go, put all that in your hand luggage. And then I always recommend as well, in your hand luggage, pack your toothbrush, pack some, in the small plastic bag of the right size of toiletries, pack some basic toiletries, a change of t-shirt and jumper for the next day, just in case your luggage goes missing. That's very, very rare. But just in case, that's what I always do when I travel overseas, especially if you're getting a connecting flight somehow, and you're not flying directly to London. I always pack a few basic essentials in my hand luggage, just in case. Please do not bring any food or plants with you. We understand that they're home comforts. Sometimes you might like the plant from your bedroom in your new bedroom in Portsmouth, or there's some food that you might like to bring with you, but we don't recommend doing that because it won't get through customs. So save yourself the time delay and hassle. If you're held up in customs because you brought a plant with you, you might miss your connecting coach to Portsmouth because we'll only hang on so long. We can't hang on all day for you. But for more information about how to travel and how to arrive to Portsmouth, please take a look at this website page. That has some really great top tips about how to travel, how to get to us if you arrive on a different day into London Heathrow or London Gatwick and that airport pickup service isn't available. It's that the details on our website tells you how to get to Portsmouth in another mode of transport. So this airport pickup that I've mentioned, so they are going from London Heathrow on the Saturday the 13th or Sunday the 14th of January. And the cost of that, it's normally about £25, I think. You'll be able to see that when you go through on that link there as well. But there's only one pickup time, and that's at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. So 1800 hours on the Saturday the 13th and 6 p.m. on Sunday the 14th. So think about it sensibly. We strongly encourage you to land into London Heathrow in order to catch that 6 p.m. coach service from us for us. We encourage you to arrive at least 3 hours before. So if your flight lands at 4 p.m., the chances of you making the 6 p.m. coach are very, very, very unlikely. Just with sometimes the amount of time it can take for your luggage to come off the aircraft and for you to collect your luggage. Maybe going through customs, there might be some complications there. Unlikely, you may just come straight through and it'd be a breeze and no problem at all. But sometimes when your plane lands into Heathrow, you might be sat outside the gates before you can even get off the aircraft. I had that last week, coming back into London Heathrow from a business trip I was on. So these are things that you need to allow for. So we recommend at least 3 hours. But if you arrive, for example, at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, the 13th of January, it's up to you what you'd like to do. Think about it. It might take you a couple of hours or so to get through customs and everything. But then you've got quite a long wait till 6 o'clock in the evening. And that's absolutely fine with us. But obviously, you've got to think about your tiredness, welfare, exhaustion, all those things to think about. So try and aim it for lunchtime, afternoon, if I was you. Certainly allowing at least 3 hours before the 6 p.m. There are taxis that you can get those. So if you don't want to hang around and wait for that coach service, there is a local Portsmouth taxi company. They are called Aqua Cars. Aqua being water because we're by the ocean. So Aqua Cars, that's our local taxi service, and they will drive from Portsmouth to come and get you and bring you back to Portsmouth. And they will probably know where the student accommodation is as well. Again, look on our website there to tell you how to do that, how to contact Aqua Cars. They normally charge, depending on what time of day and how heavy the traffic is to get out of London and to get down to Portsmouth. That can take you anything from an hour plus in time-wise. So obviously the cost will reflect that. But roughly, it's about £90. 90 to £100. I'm not sure how that converts into your local currency depending on where you are, but you can have a quick Google search on that. So you're looking at roughly £90. So maybe, think about splitting that with somebody in advance. Maybe if you know somebody else, maybe from your local community that's coming to Portsmouth, then consider getting the same flight together and the same taxi as well. But we strongly do not recommend you getting a London airport taxi, because that's going to be crazy money. And we don't want you to, crikey, lose all your money straight away. That could cost you over £200 directly. And like I say, Aquacars, the local Portsmouth company, is approximately £90 to £100. Again, though, depending on the time of day. Ask for a quote from Aquacars, tell them what time your flight gets into London, and they'll be able to give you a quote and see if that's what you want to do. But other routes, of course, these aren't the only two options. You can get if you want to make a note of this, it's called the National Express Coach. And that's like a bus that will go from London Heathrow, and it will take a little while, maybe 3 to 4 hours, maybe. So it's not a quick service, but it'll take you various stops, and eventually it'll drop you into Portsmouth, which drops you actually pretty much outside our Students' Union building. So then you could get a local taxi with Aqua Cars or an Uber, and that will take you to the student accommodation. So that's the National Express Coach. There's also, of course, the train. But coming into London, you're going to have to get from London Heathrow Terminal, whichever terminal you are, to then get on the London Underground, the tube, the subway service. And that can take a bit of time, but also it can be quite tricky if you've got a heavy suitcase. There's not always elevators and lifts available, so you might have to drag that heavy suitcase up a few stairs, really, a few flights of stairs. So it's just something to consider. But like I said earlier, if you are flying direct into London Gatwick, you can get a train literally from the terminal at Gatwick straight to Portsmouth. So that, from a train point of view, that's a little bit easier. Okay, a lot to think about there. So any questions on that, please do keep those questions coming through, and Chanello and I will address those at the end. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So a few top tips here for you to consider. Please do not bring a lot of cash with you. We recommend that you don't need to bring a lot of cash with you. We recommend that you pay your tuition fees and accommodation fees electronically using your applicant view. Like I mentioned earlier, when you should by now have your own username and password to get into your applicant view, our Portsmouth system. So that's where you can pay your tuition fees. And normally it's pretty clear. It's a big red button that says pay now or pay your fees or something like that. But any questions or problems, you can contact Chanello and I. Bring a small amount of cash with you. That's something we recommend. Just for the first month or so, just a small amount of cash until your bank account is set up, and before maybe you can, to say, putting it on your credit card. But you can, of course, bring a credit card or traveller's checks with you as backup. A bank account in the UK can take roughly 2 weeks or longer to set up. Now, we'll help you set that up from day one. As part of the orientation activities, we will help you do that. So don't worry about that. There's a few different banks and building societies that we can advise you with, and then it's up to you which one you'd like to go to. But they're very student friendly. They're ready to welcome you as international students. They're used to seeing international students, so the banks are ready to help you. But it can take 2 weeks, sometimes a bit longer to set up. And a bank draft takes approximately 1 week to clear as well. But most students use a debit card or your mobile phone card payments from the UK bank account in place of cash. Cash is coming back into fashion a little bit in the UK. For a long time, cash has always been around and always will be, I think. But a lot of people, it's rare that people have cash in their purses these days and just pay either through their mobile phone or through their cell phone, of course, or through a debit card once you have that bank account set up. But cash, of course, is still available as well. The final point on this slide with the text information is just a quick tip there about, please note, cash worth more than €10,000, including other currency brought into the UK from outside the European Union. So for students like yourselves tuning into this webinar today, that amount of cash must be declared in customs. But like I say, we don't recommend that you bring that much cash just because you're just a high risk target. You don't want to put yourself in any risk of either losing it yourself or something worse happening. Before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to draw attention to this fabulous picture here. It's not just a picture we've got off the internet. It is actually part of our Global Week. This is on campus. And Global Week happens in March, so you'll get to appreciate and enjoy this when you come to us in Portsmouth. And Global Week is a chance for all of our international students to come together and represent your country. So wherever you're from, maybe get involved next March, and get involved with representing your country. And it's a really fun social, you can do performances, you can play an instrument, you can do a spoken word, or you can just have a little information stand to tell people about your country. It's a really fun week actually of activities to take part in. So this was taken either last year or the year before, I think, where students were profiling their country. So it's a fabulous picture. So I just wanted to acknowledge that with you. Okay, so moving on to arriving at the University of Portsmouth. Excuse me one moment. So when you arrive to the university now, so that's more about arriving to the country before, but this is more specifically to the university. First things first, contact your family or guardians to let them know that you've arrived safely. You'd be surprised how many parents ring the university to say, has my daughter arrived? Is my son okay? I haven't heard from them. So just get your phone connected. We'll give you a free SIM card. So get your phone connected and let them know that you've arrived safely, just for that peace of mind. When you've done that, of course, register on your course. We'll tell you how to do that and where to go. And attend your orientation and welcome events. It's easy sometimes to feel a bit overwhelmed with your new country, your new home, your new city, new people. Excuse me, I'm coughing now. But it can feel quite overwhelming to just want to keep yourself to yourself, maybe sit in your room, keep warm, all those things. But it's important to get out there. Put yourself out there and attend the orientation activities, attend the welcome events. Majority of these are free of charge, majority of which have some kind of free food, whether that's a slice of cake or a slice of pizza. So come along, either do them online or in person. And some events you will need to book, even if they are free, you will need to book in advance. So we'll send you links about how to do all of that as well. You'll then need to consider about how you're going to collect your BRP card for your visa from the place written on your visa decision letter. And then you'll be able to do that comparison and check that the details are correct as well. If you haven't done so already, pay your tuition fees. 50% would have been due, as you know, before registration. So you need to pay the remainder when you get here. And then also attend your departmental induction. So always check, I always say this to students, always check your emails. You're going to be getting emails from us as the international team, so from Chinello or myself or the general university names, email addresses. So keep an eye on your emails for fun, social, welcome orientation activities. But also your academic tutors and your course departments are going to be contacting you as well to tell you about where you need to come for your departmental induction. And that's really important. There is a lot going on in your first few weeks, and it is a lot to take in, and you're going to be tired and your head will be spinning a little bit, but it's important that you attend these things because it's good for your welfare and settling into your new home, but it's also important to get to grips from day one to be able to hit the ground running, to understand what's needed from you as part of your course. So please make sure you attend your departmental induction. So that's, like I say, going to be email, occasionally through WhatsApp, but mostly through email. So keep an eye on your inbox, but also keep an eye on your spam junk folder as well. And that's not just when you come to Portsmouth, that is a top tip, really. Keep an eye on your email and your junk folder, your spam folder now, because the university will be contacting you about various things. Okay, so this orientation that I'm talking about, this is always a fun thing to get involved with, because as staff as well who are based in the UK, we're asked to help and volunteer and work at these events, but I don't see it as work. I see it as a great way to meet you, to welcome you to the university and to the city. Myself and my colleagues and student ambassadors as well, who are already studying with us. Lots of different activities and program of events to help you settle in and meet other students, because you're not alone. You're as an international student starting in January. This is a West Africa webinar. Next week, I'm doing a webinar with my colleague Emily for East and Southern Africa. I'm then going to be doing my webinars for the Americas and Central Asia. My colleague who looks after Europe is doing these sessions, etc., etc. The rest of the world, so you're not the only international students joining us in January. Yes, the September intake is normally a busier, bigger cohort of students, but still, January we're still busy and we're still offering lots of different activities. So things like campus tours and city tours. We organise things like movie nights. In September, I attended a coffee and cake afternoon. Like I say, free coffee, free cake. So a chance to come along, and it's really great for me to work on those events because I see friendships developing. I see students walk in sometimes to the movie night on their own, not knowing anybody, but then you sit at a table or you sit next to somebody on the sofa or wherever you are, having a slice of coffee, a slice of cake and a cup of coffee, and whatever social activity is. I then see people walking in on their own, but then walking out with friends. And I see them swapping numbers and swapping their social media chat platforms and things like that. So really, even if you're nervous to do that, put yourself out there, step outside your comfort zone, because you're not alone. And you're going to find, hopefully, like-minded students from your country and others, like I've mentioned, and some British students you're going to meet as well. And this could be your new family. It's important to meet people like you know, potential friends, potential acquaintances, housemates, you know, get yourself social, get yourself talking. We also then do welcome and introductory workshops as well. So you'll have maybe a welcome talk, whether you're a bachelor, undergraduate student, or a master's postgraduate student, or a PhD student. There'll be welcome and introductory workshops as well. But the full programme is available on our website, as you can see here on that link. So you'll be able to make a note of that, put that into your search engine and see which ones you can just turn up for, others which you need to book for because there might be a room capacity or something like that. But if there is free cake, you want to make sure that we order enough free cake for you to enjoy that. So please do register for some of the activities. Okay, I won't go into all of these points here, but just to let you know that student services, student advice services, there's various kind of departments, platforms that are available to you. Because yes, we want you to come and to find your way around the city and get you here to the university and let you make friends and crack on. But there's still student advice services throughout the duration of your studies. So it's not that we're just gonna, like the first few weeks, it's all go, it's all intense, there's loads going on, and then that's it. It's not a case of leaving you just to crack on. There's lots of different support services, advice services that are available. So you can see we have the student wellbeing service, checking in with you, making sure that you're doing okay mentally, that your mind is okay, that you're not too homesick and not feeling a bit lost and nervous and anxious maybe about this big move of coming to the UK. Don't feel like you're on your own. You know, there are counselling services available free of charge that you can reach out for as part of the wellbeing service. We have the multi-faith chaplaincy, so religious groups, associations for you to find your community there through your faith. You will have a personal tutor on your course, a personal tutor for whichever course you're doing. So a point of contact that you can go to. So if you forget anything that Chinelo and I have said on this presentation, if you go to your personal tutor and say, hey, I need some help with ABC, then your personal tutor should be able to advise you. But there's also student finance support as well. So any financial worries, monies, concerns you've got, you can speak to us. There's then the careers and support and guidance team as well. So the careers, your career isn't something to think about just in your final year or coming to the end of your 1 year masters. Go and speak to the careers and support and guidance team from day one, because they can get you thinking about your future, your next steps upon graduation. They can also help you out with part-time work and part-time jobs as well, potentially, whilst you're studying here. And Chinelo will cover that about part-time work later on at the end of this presentation. There's also the Maths Cafe. The Maths Cafe makes maths sound fun, doesn't it? It sounds something that you'd see in primary school, but actually it's a really good service. And I know the master's students in particular have really valued that, because something like, I don't know, for example, I work with some students where the logistics and supply chain management masters. You would think by the title of logistics and supply chain management wouldn't have much maths, but actually there's quite a bit of statistics and numbers there. So those students quite often go to the Maths Cafe just for some extra advice and support. We also have access, you also have access as students to LinkedIn Learning. That's a resource platform through LinkedIn that the university pays for, so free of charge to you. And then within your departments, your subject departments, we call those faculties. So departmental or faculty hubs and faculty engagement officers, they are representatives internally to your subject department. So the faculty representatives will be able to help you as well. Okay, on to Chinelo for this final slide with regards to the graduate immigration route.
Thank you, Ruth. So just before I speak on this, I wanted to just reiterate on a few things Ruth mentioned. And this is because I remember from my last presentation, pre-departure briefing, where I was talking about the airport pickup and the various means of making your journey to the university from the airport. I got quite a number of students asking all manner of questions under the Q&A and the chat session. So I have drafted like an email that has all the important links in case you're not able to make it to the university using the airport pickup option, which I'm aware is just for 2 days. And so I know some students will be arriving after those days and they'd be concerned as to how they will journey from the airport to the university. So if you would like further information on that, please just send me an email or a WhatsApp message, and I'll be happy to share you that email that has all those links. I know it can be a bit challenging thinking about how to make your journey from the airport, because I have been in that position before. And sometimes when you hear the explanations from an expert like Ruth, it seems like it's very simple, and it is, but since it's most of the case the first time for students, I can understand the anxieties and the concerns. So please feel free to get in touch and I will send you that email. I'll also be happy to link you with the International Student Advice Team, and they'll be happy to provide you with further information on how to make your journey in case you miss the airport pickup. And then another information I wanted to include was there's been an extension on the course start dates. And so if you think that you will not be able to make it to the university on the start date stated on your CAS, their CAS statement says you should email the registration team and let them know. In emailing them, please also copy me in so that I can chase up on them if there is any information you're seeking, and also to intimate you with the latest start dates that we have now put in place for international students who are trying to get to the university, because we do understand that there will be closures during the holiday, not just from the university side of things, but also from the UKVI Home Office. And so that would impact on the waiting period for your visa application and response. And so there has been an extension on the start date for some of the courses. And so if you think that you will not be able to make it in time to start off your course as stated on your CAS statement, please get in touch with the registration team. Their email is on the CAS, on your CAS statement, but ensure that you copy me in so I can also provide you with that additional information. So I will then talk about the graduate immigration route, GIR for short. Now, I'm sure most of us on this call are aware that there is the possibility of staying back after the completion of your course program. This allows you to have a visa extension for up to 2 years. You will need to be in the UK to apply for that visa, and you should have completed your course within the original course dates on your CAS statement. And so if you are considering applying for the graduate immigration route, you should ensure that you complete your course, and not just complete your course program, but complete them within the stipulated dates. You will need to meet all the requirements, including having a valid student route visa, and of course, completing your course to be able to apply for the course, for the graduate immigration rules. Now, I do know that on your visa, it states explicitly that international students on a full-time course program are only allowed to work for 20 hours a week. I also do know that some students try to disobey that rule by working for longer hours. And so it's important for me to reiterate here that if your plan is to apply for the graduate immigration route, the last thing you should be thinking of is being in the bad books and extending your work time from 20 hours to however hours you then decide you want to work would impact negatively on your GI route visa. And so it's important that you are in your best behavior, obeying all the rules, completing your course on time. So for courses of 12 months or less, you must have studied the whole course in the UK. And for courses of more than 12 months, so in this case would apply to the PhD students or the MRes students, you must have studied in the UK for at least 12 months to be able to qualify for that graduate immigration route. Further information on this can be found here. So we're going to share this slides presentation and the recording if you ask for it, and we'll be happy to provide you with that information. So it's just important that you have this information at your fingertips so you do not do the wrong thing and mess up your chances of getting the 2-year graduate immigration route extension. Next slide, please, Rose. Yes, so we come to the end of this presentation. So this slide essentially just includes my details and that of Ruth. So email addresses, our telephone number. My telephone number is also accessible via WhatsApp. So feel free to send me any information or questions or queries that you might have regarding your journey to study at the University of Portsmouth. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we're on YouTube, on TikTok. Ruth's email is there as well as her telephone number. And so we're just going to go straight to the Q&A. I see that there are 2 questions there already. Please feel free to send in your questions so that we can address them here. If you're not able to, for whatever reason, because we do appreciate that this has been a long one, you can always send us an email or send us a WhatsApp message, and we'll be happy to answer your question. So the first question
my telephone, just to chip in, sorry, my telephone number there is also WhatsApp as well. So like Janella's offered, if you wanted to speak to me, you can send me a WhatsApp message, and that's probably better than email, to be honest, for a quicker response. So that's welcome to you. So thank you, Janello. But yeah, let's go straight to the questions. The first one then, can I get 1,000 for my CAS and I pay the remaining with before visa application, because this student has issues with their bank in Nigeria? What do you mean by that? I'm not quite sure. Do you mean 1,000 towards your tuition fees? Because you can't pay for like an advance on the CAS. The CAS will come to you when it's processed, once you've met all the entry requirements. Chinello, is that what the student means, do you think? It's anonymous attendee.
Well, it's not a clear question, but I would just like to state here that you cannot get your CAS until you have completed your tuition deposit.
Okay.
Now the tuition deposit is...
Sorry, the student's just jumped in, I think.
Yeah.
Or somebody has commented saying 1,000 for deposit. And it's more than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so when you have been issued your offer letter, it will come with the conditions, and part of the condition is payment of 50% of your tuition fees. There has been some flexibility surrounding that condition, and we're now able to accept £6,000 out of your tuition fees. That's the minimum you can pay, and then of course fulfilling the rest of all the academic conditions to be able to have an unconditional offer and to have your CAS sent out to you. So anything less than that will not be seen as a full payment and will not be seen as a met condition. And so there will not be the option of you getting your CAS statement unless you have fulfilled all the conditions, which would include either the payment of 50% of your tuition fees or a minimum of £6,000 out of your tuition fees. Now, for students who go ahead to pay 6,000, which in most cases is not up to 50% of your tuition fees, it's important that you are aware that to complete your registration, enrollment, and commencement of your lectures when you arrive at the university, you should be seen to have paid 50% of your tuition fees. The balance 50% is where there is a bit of flexibility, where you can then spread out this payment in up to 3 installments. But like I always say to students, it is important that you have that conversation with the income team sooner rather than later. So once you have registered, commenced your course, have settled in, you should then start to communicate with the income team to express the interest of wanting to spread out the rest of your payments. You shouldn't leave it till the very last minute. So I hope I've been able to answer your question, Kolapo. If I have not been able to, or you have any other additional question on this matter, please feel free to send another question or just email me directly, or Ruth, or send us a WhatsApp message. I'll be happy to clarify further. So the next question is, if I'm unable to meet all the requirements, can I defer to September for my course? So from your question, I see that you probably have an offer for an MSc Criminal Exercise Science program. So that
clinical exercise science.
The clinical exercise science course. That course has got 2 intakes. So there's the January and the September. So I'm assuming that you have an offer for January. You're thinking of deferring your place till September. That's absolutely fine. So what you will need to do is to contact the admissions team and let them know that you would be unable to meet the requirements and you would like your offer deferred till September. However, it's important that you note that there might be a review of the tuition fees. And so what you are paying for January might not be what will be applicable for September. It's usually the case most of the time. Sometimes it's not, but it's important that you are aware that there is a possibility there. And so when you have requested for a deferment and your new offer letter is then provided to you, please ensure that you have a look at it to determine whether this is a course you would like to progress with based on the new tuition fees for that course program.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And
so
also with that, sorry, Shannon, I thought you'd finished. Also with that as well, the health service charges, the International Health Service, the charges there are going to, there's talk of them increasing in January. So that's another thing to consider if you defer to September next year. Those fees, they're not going to jump drastically, I wouldn't think, but just another thing to consider. And if by chance you go to a certain point and you do get your CAS for January, but then you change your mind and you think for whatever reason you prefer to have September, you need to let the university know as well, because we need to contact UKVI because we will need to issue you a new CAS. So just things to consider. It's not, it's doable, of course, but it's just things which are important for you to consider. Okay, so the next question here, my question is regarding halls, which is the student accommodation. I would like to stay in halls and I've arranged to pay for my halls deposit of £250. However, my sponsor, who's the PTDF, will pay into my account after I arrived in the UK and have finished all necessary documents, including bank account opening. Is it possible my halls payment is arranged towards when my sponsor pays for my living expenses into my account? Yes, I think basically the quick answer is yes. I think what you need to do though is just communicate that with our accommodations team. If I jump back on the presentation, quite early on, there was a email address here. Oh no, let me move this out of the way. So you need to email us, it says on the screen there at the bottom, student.housing@port.ac.uk. So in that email title, please put your name against the title of the content of your email. So and put your student ID number so that we can quickly, the accommodation team can quickly find you and can make a note that you are a sponsored student, because we'll know that that money will be coming. As long as you have that letter from PTDF, that official letter to say that your fees and accommodation is covered by then that I would imagine will be enough. And we'll just wait until that money is received. Chanello, is there anything that I've missed there, or is that right, that answer I've given?
Yeah, I would suggest that you speak with the student housing team, just like Ruth has said, because they have a deadline for payments. And in the past years, I usually would advise students to go ahead and pay the minimum amount, which is about £250, and then figure out how they will make the next payments whilst waiting for the PTDF to send through the funds. What we want to avoid is you then arrive in the university and your accommodation has not been sorted. So my advice is that you let the student housing team know the circumstance concerning your funding at the university. The PTDF is a sponsorship body that we have a memorandum of understanding with, so surely they are familiar with the PTDF, but the key thing is contacting the student housing team and letting them know as soon as possible the situation, so they can then advise on what to do. Sometimes it might be a case of you having to make that payment, and when the PTDF then sends your money through, you just claim your funds back since they're making the payment into your account anyway, because usually with the accommodation, there is a deadline, and what we don't want is you to have missed that deadline.
No, absolutely. That's good advice. Thank you, Chinelo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is your last chance to ask any more questions. Thank you very much for those students that have asked the questions. If there's any bits of this presentation you'd like me just to flick through and go back to, I'm just going to go through to the final slide so you can make a note of our contact details. But if anybody has any questions, now is your chance to quickly type them into the Q&A. We'll give you a minute or so to do that. But thank you for those of you that have tuned in and listened to everything we've had to say. We appreciate that is a lot. So please don't hold back if something wasn't explained clearly, or if you just want something confirming, then please do reach out to Chinelo and I on those contact details there. We're happy to help you. We're here for you. We want you to get here. We want you to be here. So we want to make that process as smooth and easy as possible, basically. So, reach out to us and contact us. Please be aware that the university does close for Christmas, though. It will close on Friday, the 22nd, 24th, 23rd. Yeah, Friday, the 22nd of December until probably around the 4th of January. And generally, people don't check emails at this time of year in between those dates. So please don't leave it to the Christmas vacation period. Please think about getting in touch, ideally before Friday, the 22nd, the last day of term. And then we'll pick up those emails. But not everyone comes back on the 4th of January either. So you really need to get ahead of the game there with this time of year.